For years, one single architecture has absolutely reigned supreme in the world of computer vision. But a powerful challenger has emerged, and it's coming from a place you might not expect, the world of language. It's forcing us to rethink, everything we know about how machines see. This is the story of the Vision Transformer.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the longtime champ, the convolutional neural network. Then, we'll meet the new challenger, the transformer, and figure out how it was taught to see. After that, we'll put them head-to-head, and finally, we'll ask the big question, is their future a competition or a collaboration?
All right, first up, let's pay our respects to the undisputed king of computer vision for the better part of a decade, the convolutional neural network, or as you know it, the CNN.
So at its very heart, a CNN is kind of like a feature detective. It's built specifically for data that looks like a grid, like an image. And the really clever part is how it uses these little filters to automatically learn a whole hierarchy of features. It starts simple, finding edges and textures, and then builds those up into more complex things like shapes and eventually whole objects.
And this visual really shows you its secret sauce. See that little window they call a kernel? It just slides across the image, tile by tile, pixel by pixel. And at every single step, it's looking for a very specific local pattern. By doing this over and over with tons of different kernels, it builds up this incredibly rich map of all the little details in an image.
But here's the catch. That intense focus on local neighborhoods is also its biggest weakness. Because a CNN builds its understanding one little piece at a time, it can sometimes struggle to get the global context. The relationship between things that are far apart in a scene. It sees the trees perfectly, but sometimes it completely misses the forest.
And that limitation, that very weakness, is what opened the door for a brand new contender. And this one came from a completely different universe, the world of natural language processing. Let's talk about the Transformer.
So, Transformers first exploded onto the scene back in 2017 with a paper called Attention is All You Need, and they totally flipped the script on how machines handle text. See, instead of reading a sentence one word at a time, a transformer looks at every single word at the exact same time. This lets it understand the full context and all the nuance of the entire sentence at once. It's a game changer.
Its superpower is this incredible mechanism called self-attention. Basically, this lets the model figure out the importance of every single part of the input as it relates to every other part. So for a sentence, it's figuring out which words are most important for understanding any other given word. And that's how it nails that global context. Okay, this diagram here visualizes that whole attention thing. The input gets processed into three things: queries, keys, and values. Now think of it like you're in a library. The query is the topic you're researching. The keys are like the titles on the spines of all the books, and the values are the actual information inside the books. The model matches your query to all the keys to decide which books are most relevant, and then it pulls their information to give you an answer that understands how everything is connected.
So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? If this thing is so good at understanding the context of sentences, how in the world did researchers get it to understand the context of an image? How did they teach a language model how to see?
Well, the idea they came up with was just brilliantly simple. They basically said, let's treat an image like it's a sentence. So first, they chop the image up into a grid of smaller fixed-size patches. Then, they take each little patch and flatten it into a line of data, turning it into a word. To make sure the model knows where each word came from, they add some positional info. And then, they just feed that whole sequence of patches right into a standard transformer, which then reads the image just like it would read a paragraph.
And just like that, a whole new way of doing computer vision was born. And it set up this massive showdown with CNNs. So let's put them in the ring, head-to-head, and see how they actually stack up.
This table really nails the key differences. You've got convolution versus self-attention, local feature learning versus global. But here's a really important one: data needs. See, CNNs have a built-in bias, a head start, on how images are structured, so they can do pretty well even with smaller data sets. Vision transformers, or VITs, on the other hand, they have to learn all of those spatial relationships from scratch. And that means they are incredibly data hungry, which also means they're super expensive to train. They need massive, massive data sets to really hit their stride. So CNNs are great for your general, everyday tasks, while VITs totally excel at huge, large-scale problems, or things that need fine-grained recognition, like identifying a specific bird species, where understanding the whole picture is absolutely everything. And when they do hit their stride, the results are just wow. Take this real-world example. A standard vision transformer was fine-tuned on a custom medical data set of breast cancer ultrasound images. Because it could capture these really complex and subtle global patterns, stuff the human eye might miss, it achieved an incredible 91% accuracy in classifying the images. That's just amazing.
But hang on, what if this isn't a winner-take-all fight? What if the strengths of these two totally different architectures are actually complementary? That's what we're going to dig into next, the idea of a more collaborative future.
So researchers started digging into the math, they started looking under the hood, and they found something fascinating. This quote here says it all. When you really break down both convolution and self-attention to their core parts, you find out that the most expensive part, the part that does the bulk of the work, is actually the exact same operation in both. It's a series of one-by-one convolutions used for feature projection.
And that insight led to these brilliant hybrid models like AC-Mix. The logic is just so smart. If the heavy lifting is the same for both, why on earth would you do it twice? So look, AC-Mix performs that expensive projection step just once. Then, it takes those shared features and sends them down two parallel super lightweight paths. One path gathers them up like a CNN to see local details, and the other uses self-attention to get that global context.
And the main takeaway here? Well, you get the absolute best of both worlds, and you get it with incredible efficiency. You have the local, detail-oriented power of a CNN and the global, context-aware power of a transformer, all without the massive computational cost of running two separate heavy-duty models. And the results speak for themselves, consistently beating pure CNN or pure transformer models.
This chart is so cool because it basically shows you what the hybrid model is thinking. By letting the network choose which path to lean on, a really clear pattern shows up. In the early layers, the model heavily prefers convolution, to find all those basic features like edges and textures. But as you get deeper into the network, it starts to favor self-attention more and more to piece everything together and understand the whole scene. It's like the model learns to be a detective first, gathering clues, and then it becomes a strategist, seeing the entire board. So all of this brings us to one final thought. The rise of the vision transformer wasn't the end of the CNN, not at all. Instead, it just highlighted the unique strengths and weaknesses of both. So maybe the future of AI sight isn't really about one architecture winning a battle against the other, but about us finding the smartest, most powerful ways for them to work together.